The response arrived the next day. Telegrams had been sent to and from India, and a ticket for the little boy would be waiting for them on the boat. A carriage would call for the little family at 9 in the morning to transport the travelers and their luggage to the Flower of Kashmir, scheduled to leave port at noon. At the docks in Bombay, they would be met by the Maharaja's Daimler automobile. Max, flushed with victory, asked, "Can I take my bicycle?" William Starling, equally flushed, answered, "Your bicycle? Why not? What an adventure!" He rose from the table and held a hand out to his wife. She rose to stand with him, and even though there was only Max's audience, they bowed to one another. The way in which William and Mary Starling took bows, thought Max, who had spent years observing his parents both on and off stage, was a little drama of its own. Always, of course, there were the smiles, brilliant smiles, and shining eyes to tell the audience, any audience, however large or small, whether in theater seats or on a street corner, how much the actors appreciated the attention, the admiration, the applause. Max could recognize the half bow for social occasions, the slight nod of the head for close friends and family, the deep bow with bent knees and lowered heads if there happened to be royalty present for a performance. He liked best to see his parents turn to one another in front of the lowered curtain, where William bowed from the waist to his wife, who gave him in return her best court curtsy. This meant they each felt the other had performed with extreme excellence that evening. It was the opposite of a bow the couple took with their hands clasped between them as their free hands reached out to the audience. Those clasped hands meant trouble for someone. The very next day they canceled performances and advised the remaining members of the company to go on the road and share among themselves the major roles usually taken by William and Mary. Notices were posted, one at the entrance to the Starling Theater, one beside the stage door, and even one beside the small, seldom used black entrance hidden away down an unlit alley. Closing indefinitely as of April 15th, the notices read, and they were signed in bold, looping handwriting, "William Starling, manager and director." It was arranged that the gas and electricity would be turned off at the theater after the last performance. "We'll give them adorable Arabella," William decided. "It's your most popular role, my dearling, and for good reason. You are Arabella herself. They won't forget us, with your Arabella as their last memory." William Starling announced his good news to everyone he met. "We are about to embark on the time of our lives. In restaurant dining rooms and public houses, in streets and in stores," he proclaimed it. Everyone joined in his excitement and applauded his luck, for William Starling was a one-of-a-kind character, vivid, extravagant, larger than life. To be in his presence was to feel more alive yourself. "I'm off to see the world," he cried joyfully. "I'll send you a postcard." Grammy had doubts. On Thursday, the day the theater was dark, she took the well-worn path across their adjoining yards and knocked on the kitchen door. She always knocked and waited to be invited in because, as she said, when relatives live so close together, it's especially important to have good manners with one another. When she came into the front parlor, which was strewn with costumes, from among which would be selected those to be taken to India, Max's father waved the letter in front of her nose, then folded it up and put it in his pocket. "Show your mother the jeweled brooch," he said to his wife, rolling the last two words around in his mouth like a candy. Grammy was not won over so easily. "If you can't judge a book by its cover," she said, "still less can you judge a letter by its gilded edges. Think about it, William," she advised in the schoolteacher voice she had perfected when she was a young widow with a daughter to raise. "There she goes," cried Max's father, throwing his hands up into the air in dramatic exasperation. "Dragging books into everything. Raining on our parade." Grammy stuck to her point. I have my doubts about this. Why all the mystery? William Starling turned to his son. Your grandmother, Max, is a stay-at-home, and this makes her an excellent librarian. We, on the other hand, are not. Au contraire, we are adventurers. And she, now he glared at Grammy, as if she were the villain in one of his productions. He pointed an accusing forefinger right between her eyes. She knows this full well, he repeated. Grammy laughed, as William and Mary and Max all knew she would. Then Max's mother brought the pot of fish stew out to the dining room table, where thick slices of dark bread were already set out in a bowl, and they all sat down to supper. Before she began to ladle the thick tomato and fish and potato and onion mixture into bowls, Mary Starling looked around at the posters on the walls, at the books and scripts lined up in the tall bookcase, and took a deep breath. She said to her mother, "We've talked it over and decided not to have you read the letter." Grammy raised an eyebrow. "You're a good librarian, and you'll look everything up." Grammy opened her mouth. "And then you'll start to teach us all about the country and its people and its geography and history. And we won't," she concluded hurriedly before Grammy could interrupt, "have the adventure of discovering things for ourselves." She spoke more quietly than her husband, more like a judge than a politician, more like a king than a general. Grammy admitted, "You're right. You're absolutely right about me. I hope that by my age I know the person I am, and you're right about what I'd do, but I'd be foolish not to worry." "You don't ever need to worry about me," Max's father assured her. "I'm invincible." To prove his point, he thumped his chest with his fist. Grammy humphed but said nothing. Max's mother passed around bowls of steaming stew. Max passed around the bread. "And I would never let anything happen to your darling daughter or your precious grandson," William Starling promised. Grammy humphed again. Max's mother offered her own kind of comfort. "There's no use to worrying, you know that, and there's no need for it. Not about us," she added, with a quick, glad smile at her husband. "We always land on our feet, don't we?" "That's all very well for you, but what about Max?" asked Grammy. "What about his education?" "He'll be attending the School of Life. He'll graduate from the University of Experience," William Starling declared, although in fact they had made no plans other than to inform Max's teachers that he would be out of school and out of the city and out of the country for the foreseeable future. Grammy persisted. "He'd be better off staying with me, attending the school of his own life." Mary Starling spoke gently. "We're always grateful to you for the way you took care of Max when he was little, always. But he is 12, almost 13, old enough to travel in a foreign country and not get himself in trouble, old enough to get a lot out of the experience too." Nobody asked Max what he thought, and of course he minded. When it was his life they were having opinions about, he was seated at his usual place at the table, and he looked from one of his parents to the other, minding. He also minded Grammy, trying to turn him back into the little boy she'd so often had in her care. For a night or a month, a little boy who couldn't be left on his own in his own house. In fact, the only thing he didn't mind right then was being taken out of school. At school they called him Eyes, and it wasn't a friendly nickname. He said to nobody in particular, "I want to go. I really do." With all three of them against her, Grammy could only sigh. I know you're always fine, and," she turned to Max, "you're old enough to look out for yourself. I know. I'd just feel better if I knew where in the world you'll be. You'll find that out, my dear little mother-in-law, when you get our postcards."